everyone. I'm Kerry Siggins, and I'm back with another In the KIoTchen episode. And I am so excited to have my guest, Jeff Hansen, today. Jeff, thank you so much for joining me on the show.
My pleasure. Forward to the talk.
All right. So you are the SVP of Global Sales for Sarcos. Can you tell us a little bit about what the company is and about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, you bet. So Sarcos Robotics is a public company. We've been around for 30 years. We were a spin out from the University of Utah 30 years ago. We've had quite a few different lives, and all throughout the different variations of the business in the last 30 years, been a couple of permeating themes. One is dexterous robots. And the other is that we perform our duties. Our robots perform their duties outdoors or in challenging, non-structured environments. And about 7 years ago, we were owned by Raytheon for about 6 or 7 years. We've spent a lot of time in the defense industry. Still, a lot of our revenue comes from the defense side. And over the last 7 years, we've been very focused on exoskeletons in particular. And the exoskeleton market is a broad array of different kinds of solutions that get called exoskeletons. Some of them are passive, don't have any power behind them, but help you maybe lift something that's heavy. And then on the other side of the spectrum, which is where we're at, you have a fully powered, battery-powered exoskeleton that can lift up to 200 pounds. It completely bears the full load of what you're lifting. So as a human, oftentimes if you use a passive exoskeleton, it'll help you so you don't hurt your back, but you're not moving the weight off of your skeleton. So it can, provide challenges for your legs or other things like that. And our full battery-powered exoskeleton basically can lift that 200 pounds and you don't have to feel a thing.
That's amazing. And what does it feel like to have the exoskeleton on? Is it heavy? Is it uncomfortable? Well, describe it.
No. In fact, we oftentimes see that our operators will add a little bit of weight to their experience so that they get this little feeling of actually doing, lifting something that's very heavy. So I would say it feels like wearing a backpack. You can make it as heavy as you want, but we usually have maybe 10 to 15 pounds of weight that feels like you're in it. And the robot functions through load sensors, and it anticipates the direction and activity that you're going to do. The main load sensors are in your hands, and so behind your hand sensor, the hand grips are load sensors that basically anticipate where you're going. And you're also tied in. You walk in it, and you have your feet in it, and so it has a bunch of sensors along your torso. We also have a version of the XO, which stands for exoskeleton, where you basically kind of think of cutting off the legs and just using the torso. So you have the lift capabilities, those 200 pounds you can lift with that robot are then mounted to a fixed location. And so then think of placing that robot in a boom on a lift truck, being able to go up at height. And this is really where we're seeing a lot of the momentum in the market, where there are difficult, challenging jobs that are oftentimes very dangerous, lead to falls at height, which is the number 3 most dangerous injury. And you're oftentimes in scenarios where they're very challenging or dangerous, like cutting limbs next to live power lines, or doing things above your head, or in dusty, dirty environments like surface prep, where you want to get your body and your human out of it, but you still need the human intellect to be able to make decisions.
Yeah. So for those of you who don't necessarily understand what surface prep is, it's part of what StoneAge does. Of course, StoneAge is the parent company of Breadware, and surface prep is what it sounds like. It's kind of like, imagine it's like your pressure washer, right? That you are. It feels so good when you're cleaning, bird poop off of your driveway, only we're talking at much higher pressures. And so the force of a guy holding a shotgun with 40,000 PSI coming out of the nozzle, it's really exhausting and incredibly dangerous. So, I mean, I can absolutely see why, these types of systems can be so useful in surface prep, but you also need to be able to bend around to get around different surfaces that are uneven, or, that you have to actually think about, like, how am I going to reach back there and get it? So
Exactly.
I just want to give a little bit of context for what that looks like, and certainly how these systems are used in the industrial cleaning industry.
Yeah, and what you've just described is a core tenet of robotics. There's a long history in robotics in doing the same job over and over again in a manufacturing environment. That's well established. But doing robotic work in unstructured environments or mobile environments is very new and very challenging. And so, you and I as humans, we wake up in the morning, we walk down the stairs, we throw ourselves out into space and we catch ourselves. We don't think twice about walking downstairs. It's a very hard thing to do with a robot. And so also acting and doing the human jobs requires lots of degrees of freedom. And so we have up to 7 degrees of freedom in each one of the arms of the XT. And then it's controlled by an operator who's in a teleoperated suit, a motion control suit with the VR pass through. And so as you move your arms, so move the arms of the robot. As you move your head, so moves the head of the robot. And we find that this very natural human-like activity replicated in the robot, but giving them superhuman powers with the ability to lift things and do jobs that are dangerous is a pretty unique combination.
So explain exactly how how the virtual reality works. So you put on the headset goggles. Are you seeing it? Are you seeing the application through the goggles? Describe it.
We are, yeah.
Okay.
Having spent the last 7 years myself before coming to Sarcos in the AR VR industry, I was very interested in exactly how that would come to play. We're not rendering a fake environment in VR. We're actually taking 4K cameras that have passed through video and are mounted on the robot at the same proportion as a human would be. And so you think of doing that job that you would normally do up in the bucket. Let's just use the example of cutting trees next to power lines. You would be reaching out over the edge of the bucket and you'd be reaching with your saw to cut a limb. And obviously your vision has a lot to do with where you're going to cut. And so it has to be very intuitive. And so the 4K system sits on top of the robot and it's passed through video. So you're seeing wide angle experience on the pass through video, which then makes it possible for you as you're moving your arms to have a very natural human experience.
Yeah. And are you doing anything with the video? So, the guy's out there, he's cutting trees, or he's, or she, I should say, is doing surface prep. They're seeing it through this augmented vision, it's camera. What happens after that? Are you doing anything with that data that comes from the camera?
Not necessarily doing things with the camera data, but we definitely, as we build the robots, we're really looking for AI algorithms to unlock efficiencies for the robots to create adaptability. And so we model how the humans learn instead of trying to do high volume training data and tedious repetition. And so, it's a challenge, but it's really the way that the AI algorithms help us to mimic actions of a human operator. And so while we don't necessarily take the video feed to drive something, because that's really meant to help the operator do his job in real time, low latency, high quality video. Behind the scenes, kind of the whole advancement that Sarcos is making in AI and machine learning is really meant to help run these models that help us understand how a robot was supposed to work in real time.
And is there a future or vision that with these, with AI and all of this data that you are generating because of the algorithms or through the movement, that the robot will be able to anticipate a little bit more? What does that look like?
Absolutely does. You think about moving from a model where it's controlled by a human or run by a human right now, with i.e., I'm in the exoskeleton controlling the robot or I'm teleoperating it, to a point that is semi-autonomous and supervised by a human. And you only get to that point with additional computer vision, additional AI, being able to be smart about it, but also learning the repetitive tasks that can be done and duplicating those. And so, the future is absolutely not just in Sarcos, but I think overall in robotics is that they're smarter and smarter and can actually anticipate activities before they need to be done.
Yeah, that's so fascinating. And then what about, so obviously I can see the advancement for safety, right? The human safety aspect of robots. What about efficiency? How does an exoskeleton help a guy or gal be more efficient in the work that they're doing? And how do you see that really changing the work that's done in industrial facilities or utilities or things like that?
Well, there's some challenging underlying drivers of needing this kind of help. One is an aging workforce. You don't want
Yep.
to necessarily see somebody who has all that expertise aging out just because they physically can't do it. So if you can help them retain the ability to do it physically, that's an amazing asset to keep around and continuing to do their job, of course. Um, One thing that's not talked about a lot is fatigue. It's something that's very hard to measure. And if you're doing taxing jobs, I'll use your example of holding the hose in surface prep. I mean, you get into a position, you're holding there's a ton of thrust there. You cannot do that for very long. So if you just take a very standard productivity metric, if I can only do that for 30 minutes out of an hour, and I can have the robot doing it for 50 minutes out of the hour, of course I've got a dramatic increase in pure productivity just in doing the job. But again, if you're also helping that person to avoid getting hurt, or having that fatigue, they can actually do the job, even if they might be teleoperating the robot longer than they would have done otherwise. So, some of our customers are seeing on a standard 8 hour shift that they're only using their physical assets, the truck that might be pushing putting a person up in the air for maybe half the time. So it doesn't take a lot to say, okay, I'm going to use that truck from instead of 4 hours to 8 hours a day, just because I don't have to have my workers getting so fatigued by doing that job.
Yeah, I think that really makes sense. I mean, coming from my world where downtime in a plant matters, right? An hour can cost of downtime can cost millions of dollars, and so thinking about worker productivity, efficiency, worker fatigue, it's such a compelling value proposition because boy, if I can do what was done in 4 hours in 2 hours, because we don't have people getting tired, that's really compelling. So, are you seeing the end users really wanting to adopt this and even driving some of whether it's their contractors or their workforce to consider these types of exoskeleton systems?
Of course, I think I came to this company because not only do they have amazing cutting edge technology, but underlying it all is a drive, a mission to help avoid injuries and avoid deaths. And it's clearly not anything that anybody wants to have amongst their workforce, but there are definitely industries and jobs in particular that are extremely dangerous. And people, maybe they'll tap out after 5 years because their bodies are so physically abused, right? It's like a
Right.
running back in the NFL, but you don't get paid the money in the NFL. So, you have to be cognizant of the fact that there's the potential your work is doing damage to your employees. And so anything that can, if you can, let's just put it this way, if you can keep the productivity at the same level and you can make your people that much more safe, of course you're going to do that. If you can then increase productivity and make them more safe, well, it's a no-brainer.
Yep, it's a win-win. Absolutely. And then tying this back all to IoT, what do you see the future of your robots and connected devices and how this, will continue to advance the IoT industry?
Well, having come from the AR VR side of things, I'm very familiar with edge devices and how IoT devices can provide information in real time, and it's super important if you're on a chemical plant or a gas deck, and you have sensors that are indicating there's something wrong. You can either do predictive maintenance or you can fix them in real time. The same thing applies for these kind of robots. These robots are going to be in unstructured environments doing a variety of tasks. If you're a standard automation robot in a factory, of course you're doing the exact same job over and over again. So the predictive maintenance is pretty easy to figure out. And IoT sensors are sending back signals about things that might be going wrong. Well, if you're now putting a robot in a variety of locations and even physically transporting it from one place to another, it's super important that we're communicating with our robots and we know and anticipate changes in either the environment itself, or maybe they've been lifting 50 pounds every day for most of the time, and all of a sudden now they're lifting 150 pounds all the time. Then we want to have that kind of data to help predict when we need to be able to service the robot and to make sure that things are functioning for the customer. So there's a big move, broadly speaking, on the automation side toward using the IoT and sensors and even just automating things in warehousing and production. But you're going to see that same kind of trend move into mobile environments and unstructured environments.
Yeah, well, and I mean, it's part of your future business model, right? I mean, if you're going to own these assets and help your customers really use them, I think that that's probably a pretty pretty important aspect, is to really make sure that you're collecting that data, so you can be highly responsive.
Yeah, it's not just the real-time information to help fix a robot, but of course, over time, that same user-based data
Right.
helps us to refine the robot design to be
Yeah.
even more efficient as well.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Jeff, this has been fascinating. I cannot wait to come out to your facility and see these exoskeleton robots in action. Really looking forward to any potential partnership we might have, and I really appreciate you coming on the show today to share a little bit about your technology advancements and all the cool things you're doing.
Happy to be a part of it. You're an awesome partner already, and look forward to more dialogue here. So thank you for having me on.
Wonderful. All right, thanks everybody. We'll see you next month.
Bye-bye.